Welcome to Group Talk, a podcast conversation from the Small Group Network, focusing on topics relevant to small groups ministries. Whether you're in a church of 100 or 10,000, whether you are a volunteer or staff, we want to support, encourage, and equip you to lead well. So relax and listen to today's program.
Welcome to Group Talk, one podcast featuring 2 and soon to be 4 unique shows. Hey friends, it's Derek here along with your other intrepid host, Pastor of Connections at Saddleback Church, Steve Gladen.
Hey everybody, great to be with you on this show. As Derek said, I'm very excited. July 1st, dropping at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time will be the outline. We're doing a special podcast that's going to talk. We have 4 unique shows that are happening. Got 2 new show hosts to introduce you to. And it's really designed that if you are a small group point person and you'll give us, the time to listen on a podcast, we're going to give you 4 unique places and areas of your life that will speak into to help you be a better small group point person, and also your small group ministry thus will be better. Very exciting. July 1st, we're going to start off the holiday weekend with a special show.
Yeah, mark your calendars like Steve said. I mean, we went from 1 show the last couple of years to 2 shows the first 6 months of this year to 4 shows. You're not going to want to miss who these 2 new hosts are. And on that note, shout out to Carolyn and Amber Sanders for a great show last week about how to develop an anti-racist culture in your small group. That show finished up our 2-part series on small groups and racism.
Yeah, it was. I listened to it twice in the same evening. It was that good, and about halfway through, I go, "Oh man, I should take better notes." And so, but I just listened to it just for the heart piece of it, and then I'll listen to it again for the head piece and the notes. Amber did an amazing job. It's just one of those things where we got to keep this in the forefront, or it will die away. And I would say, if you're African American, if you could. Email us at grouptalk@smallgroupnetwork.com. Would love to get your insights and input. Both Anthony and Amber have just been great coming on, give us some new perspectives. But as we try to unify the front of we're one blood in Christ, and how we can help kind of break down the barriers, get things going. There's a lot to do. We didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. And so it's going to be important for us to keep on. So if you're African American, we'd really love to hear from you. It's been one of those glaring spots that we're missing that feedback and that sensitivity of understanding things. So email us at grouptalk@smallgroupnetwork.com.
And some other big news for the SGN is that we are about to launch our first ever online training course called Align. And this course is all about learning the basic small group essentials. It's going to feature 9 total sessions taught by Steve in HD video quality. It includes a downloadable workbook, discussion questions, and a completion certificate. Steve, how pumped are you for this course?
I'm actually very, very pumped. I wrote these 8 courses, 8 sessions after the intro based on, what I wish I would have known 35 years ago when I started out in small group ministry. So no matter what your church context is, or what you're trying to produce, these sessions will be transparent towards that. And I know Derek's going to throw the opening session in the show notes so you can get an idea of what's coming down the line. But if you guys aren't familiar with Masterclass, it's a brilliant online place where you can get the top experts in different areas giving you courses. And so this is going to be one of those where this is our next horizon. Now that we got the podcast all figured out and, we're rolling there, this is going to be our next horizon of giving you quality courses that will help you in different areas. We already have 4 more courses that are in the pipeline to start to come out. So hoping that by the end of 2020, you're going to have 5 great courses that are going to be available. It's only going to expand. It's only going to get richer and better. Not so much as it's not an online conference. I mean, one of the things we learned from the 12 when we did that was trying to put everything that you do in a physical conference online. It just did not sync. It was one of our biggest learnings. And part of what we're excited about is taking this new line and this new approach. So it's going to be something a little bit different. But if you're familiar with Masterclass, you'll understand where we're going and why we're so excited about this.
It is going to be awesome. So look forward to the announcements from the SGN soon all over social media and our newsletter about when you can access this. It will be very soon.
And in the show notes.
And in the show notes, yes. Don't miss watching that introduction video. It will pump you up. So Steve, on this show, we are talking about 7 COVID re-entry musts for the small group point person. I'm really excited about this show.
Yeah, and so let me kind of give you. There's a lot of things as people are getting all across the nation. People are they have re-entered. They're already in the atmosphere. But part of what I want to do is I've been thinking through this, and I've seen just a number of things. People are trying to get communications out to their small group leaders. For us, our hosts, we're just getting ready to release that hopefully next week. But part of what I don't want you to miss is how are you re-entering as a small group point person? What I'm so excited about this show is you've got to figure out how are you re-entering. In California here, we are over 3 months of being floating out in space, and as we're starting that re-entry, you don't do it right in the space program. You burn up in the atmosphere. And part of what I'm excited about this show for in these 7 areas is figuring out, okay, what do you got to be thinking through? You're the point person. You're bringing your team into the re-entry phase. What are some things that you just can't miss? So we want to go through 7 quick things really, really well.
And speaking of reentry, here in Orange County, they're finally lifting some of the restrictions right on entering restaurants. I went to Chipotle last week and had lunch inside with a friend, and it was like entering the Holy of Holies.
It's a new experience, baby. The reentry is going to be fun.
So number 1, reflect on the COVID season.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit in a earlier podcast, but I want to bring it back to your attention. And there's 4 things to think about in this reflection piece. And there's 4 seasons, and so maybe that's the tie-in here. But what I want you to do is think through, okay, what did you when we went into COVID, you lost some things because programming came to a screeching halt. And in that, when you're thinking about your losses, you may want to start to consider what needs to stop. And when you stopped and you went into COVID in your small group ministry, there are some things you didn't do. Did you miss them? I mean, just right off the bat, what stopped that needs to stay stopped? Don't refire up some things that weren't working before, and you didn't miss them one bit when you're in the COVID season. That's the letter A. Letter B. The second thing is what was temporary that was just good only for the COVID time. And for us, there's we were doing some Together Tuesdays that were kind of targeted at just fellowship as a great temporary fix. I don't see us taking those in continuing them coming out of COVID. There was obviously our mindset of just being online only with our small groups. I don't think we'll bring that out of COVID, although there's some important aspects of that we don't want to lose. So that's the letter B. What was temporary? It was just good for COVID. And, you just say, hey, great. It was good for COVID. It won't be good post-COVID. The letter C piece is what got discovered. And this is where I want you to spend some energy in. And that was what's going to be part of your new normal. And man, the list goes on for us. I mean, breakouts and Zoom calls, how you can use that in training, how you can use that in large group gatherings, huge. Polling through Zoom, huge again, ways that you can add fun. Screen sharing as you're doing training in that. That's another huge win that we're pulling into the new normal. Having some large group online groups that are maybe are a last line of defense for getting interested people plugged into your group. My point is CLs, how we engage our infrastructure and train them and doing those purely online instead of trying to do physical ones. Same thing with hosts. Our list is just robust in that. And so that's letter C. What got discovered that you want to bring into that new normal? And then letter D on that is what is core? And that's just, what are your core values that you are so excited to come back to, focus in on, and stay put. So when you're reflecting on the COVID season, think of what got lost that needs to stay lost, what was temporary and it was just a Band-Aid basically, what got discovered, and that's going to be part of your new normal in all of this, and then what is core. And I know like in that letter C, for some of you discovered online groups for the first time. And you're like going, whoa, what is this? That is a letter C one, what got discovered.
And that brings us to number 2. What's the vision?
Yeah, and this one I'm pretty passionate about because if your only vision in the reentry is a list that says how you're going to move from virtual to physical, good Lord, come on, man. I felt like Joe Biden there for a second. Doggone it. But the thing is that you are the leader of your small group ministry. If your only vision is how to move from virtual back to physical, hang it up. You've got to ask yourself, what are they a part of that they can't get anyplace else that you've got to inject into your small group host so they can know what you're a part of? Where are you headed in 2020? 2020 got hijacked. And, whether you want to over spiritualize it and say it got hijacked by the enemy or whatever it is, but it got hijacked, brought to a screeching halt. You've got to refire up the new year and being able to say, hey, this is where we're going. Don't make this just about going from virtual to physical. Make it about where you are headed as a ministry. So the vision lies with you. So you've got to be the ones that bring it back into focus and help people remind them, this is why we do small group ministry. This is what we're a part of, and this is the hill that we're going to be taking in 2020.
Come on, you're getting fired up.
Oh, dude, after I put myself in a hole, I had to pull myself back out.
All right, number 3, clarify success.
Yeah, and this is, when we went into COVID, most small groups went into hyper triage moment. And in triage moment, because of all the emotional swings, and I would even say right now, we're going to cover this a little bit later on in one of the points, there's a lot in the mix, at least in the United States and also globally, with a lot of things that are creating this perfect storm. And naturally, when you're in these perfect storms, like the storm of COVID was one of them, your groups went to hyper care. How you doing? How you making it through this? And as it wore on and on and on, you're kind of going, okay, how can I help you get through this? What got lost probably in most of your small group ministry is, what is success? Why is that small group existing? What is the purpose of your small group? And so part of what you want to use this as a time is help give them a refresh, help them give a restart of, what is success? What's that end in mind that you're trying to go with? And how can you make that happen?
And as a CL here at Saddleback, this is what we're trying to consistently work on our small group hosts with, is always trying to clarify that end in mind, that success is, it's balancing the 5 purposes really based on the Great Commission and the Great Commandment, always clarifying that the end in mind is this balance, right?
Yeah. And so it is one of those things for us, it's clear, but even with as clear as it was pre-COVID, I will say it probably got lost a lot in the COVID season. And so part of as you're reentering, you've got to, it may be clear to you, but you have got to help everyone get restarted and understand that new engines got to get fired up. And, as much as you tried to keep that during the COVID season, I can almost guarantee you it got lost. So you've got to keep that front and center.
Brings us to number 4 is expect high emotion.
Yeah. So this is part of this trifecta storm that is there. And there is a lot of racial tension that is floating up. That's why we did a couple podcasts on it. That's why we got to keep on thinking through how do we help to build bridges? How do we help, course correct something that needs to be course corrected? So there's the racial tensions. We're also heading full steam into a political storm that's happening. And, no matter where you sit, I mean, I was joking with my wife. I was like going, man, I wish I could go to bed and just wake up on Christmas Eve. And, just because the noise is just deafening sometimes. And then you add into that the COVID season. So you're sitting there and you're thinking about reentry. You better help your small group leaders brace for the impact of the emotion that is going to get uncorked in a lot of these conversations. And so you've got to think through and help them understand that you can't explain away any one of these three big, huge issues that are in front of us: the racial tension, the political tension, the COVID tension. You just can't explain that away in a curriculum. But it's one of these things where your adjustment and your mindset has to be framed correctly. One of the verses I love is Psalm 27:13. It says, "Yet I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living." And as crazy as things can get, that's why, a news fast is probably the healthiest thing you can do. No matter what channel you listen to, they're crazies. But I'm confident that the Lord's goodness is going to be seen through all of this. Now, this doesn't mean you take a total pacifist mentality, but you've got to be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. And part of it, you got to know who's in control, and so you don't lose sight of your North Star. But also understanding in this time of process, here are three things that I would recommend that you get front and center with your host or your small group leaders. And that is, you've got to do lots of listening. And in moments like this, there's going to be a lot of crosstalk that's going to happen in your small groups. And it's going to be important as you're starting to re-enter it. You've got to get it hardwired into your guidelines. Hey, let's make sure we are listening to people, that we're not trying to fix people, that we're just trying to, be with them. So you got to do lots of listening in that area. And that means you got to prevent crosstalk from happening. You've got to prevent fixing from happening. It's just one of these things where the devil seeks to always divide. And in your small group, I would role play each one of these issues and say, give your host, give your leaders good wisdom on, just saying, hey, feelings aren't facts, and being able to, listen to people, understanding that tension that you just can't fix it through a curriculum right now. You can learn, and there are things that we've got to develop, but the bottom line is that everybody is in a different place. And just go into your small group meetings, understand that. And there's just going to be highly emotional things. I've seen the email traffic of just, people at Saddleback Church that have been writing in, and they're passionate. And passion's not bad, but sometimes you got to let them release it, and then, pick up a little bit later and walk it through. And so be comfortable with not having resolution on any one of these topics. Not that you should be jumping into them, but being able to say, I understand how you're feeling. And sometimes you got to give some course corrections. This is not the place for that. Political discussions are never the place for us at Saddleback Church for our small groups. But the racial and the COVID tensions, that may be a place, and you go, okay, how do I do this in a healthy way?
And that brings us to number 5. Understand your government rules.
Yeah. And this is, where our church is at. We're peppered on 4 continents. We're, at least in Southern California, we draw from 5 counties. We have everything from the CDC to the federal to the state health to counties to cities and all that. And, the rules are ever changing. They're worse than the stock market, but you've got to do your best to get a grip on, where your predominant county or the person who's guiding your reentry back is at, and just help your group leaders stay in touch with understanding the government rules, honoring the government. Part of Christians, we're called to pray for our government. We're called to lift them up and play by the rules, but also at the same time, if you have people that are, again, coming from different means. There's people that want mass, people that don't want mass. There's people that think it's conspiracy theory, some that don't. It's just all over the map. So, just use the government, say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to work with this, and nothing stops the church. That's the bottom line. Nothing stops the church. And this is where, in this time, as I'm talking about point 5, understanding the governmental things, there are people in your group, you may have to sidebar with them and one-on-one, connect with them. And depending where they're at, you'll Zoom with them, or you'll do it virtually, or you may meet physically for coffee. But you may have to be a lot more sensitized to everyone responds to the governmental rules very differently. And some have greater consequences than others. So, like when I'm driving, I think the speed limit is a great recommendation until there's an officer behind me, and then he may think something different. So, but you got to understand the government guidelines, but also use this as a time as the point leader to make sure the people who are helping you manage your small group ministry are going, okay, who do I need to have a one-on-one with that may be struggling with, where we are lining up as we're going back into reentry.
I loved, Steve, your phrase there that nothing stops the church. As a believer, that just brings such peace in the midst of all this craziness. And that really takes us back to point 4. God is in control. Yeah. And if we just trust in him, we will see his goodness in the land. And I don't know how people are going through 2020 without God. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, because you just look at the political storm that's on the horizon, and you're just like going, "Oh, wow, baby." Man.
So number 6, think through your guidelines.
Yeah, and this is just great. You've got to put it in writing, be clear. In the show notes, you're going to see our guidelines. I want to give a great shout out to Eastside Christian Church. They're over in Anaheim. And Cheryl Liefeld, put on the Facebook group, some great guidelines. And Cheryl, thank you.
Sherry,
baby, Sherry. Come on, go with that falsetto. Come on, baby, sing with it. Sherry, I'm so sorry, Sherry. And we just don't edit anything out. So anyway, Sherry, you did a great job with that. Over nothing worse than giving you a shout out.
Let's edit that out.
No. We're going to keep rolling. We're keeping, Sherry Liefeld. I know who you are. And so I see you at the huddle. So, give me grace.
Hey, doesn't she work for that really smart guy, Will Johnston, who used to live in DC?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's where all the smart people come from, I hear. But that's why he had Sherry write them, because she was much smarter than him. And, and she's from SoCal. So we like that. But anyways, you can look at our show notes. This is a great opportunity just to shout out, though, to the Facebook group, because I love reading what other churches have done, because they've done a great job. And Eastside did a great job in producing something for their small group leaders. We adapted it. You can see our version in the show notes with that. But the point is, I'm saying, is that the Facebook group is a good, it's a private group, but it's a great group where you can get great resources from. And you don't have to ask the same question over and over again when you just jump in. Just go on there, search a topic. And when you search a topic, you'll find all kinds of rich conversations that may have happened 2 years ago or may have happened last month. So, but anyways, good thing.
Yeah, and if you're on Facebook, search for, if you're not a part of our Small Group Network Facebook group, it's private, like Steve said, just search for the Small Group Network. You'll find it. You've got a request to join. We have a couple little 2 questions we ask you. And then, like Steve said, once you're in, on the left side, there's a little search bar where you can literally search for any keywords, and you'll see a million discussions pop up. And we're about ready to surpass 5,000 members. What do you think of that, Steve?
I love it, man. I know we're just like a breath away from tipping over 5,000 small group point people in this group. And it's just a rich field. Like I said, I love going in there when I'm thinking about a topic, and I'll just type it in and see what's been said. Sometimes it's 40 years ago. So it's like craziness.
Number 7. This is such a great one, Steve. One word, pray.
Yeah. And, in our church circles, it is so very trite to say that sometimes. And so I don't want it to be seen like that at all in this podcast. But it is something that's very important. In every one of our churches, we have prayer teams. Getting your plan of action in place with the prayer team, giving them specific things to pray for as you go in. As I mentioned, these 7 things, different things may resonate with your church. Some things may not. You may have an 8th, a 9th, a 10th one that resonates. And so I just encourage you to, give those to your prayer team. But it's going to be an important piece for us, because it is really, as we were going into 2020, I was so excited about a lot of the things that we had in store at Saddleback Church. And in some ways, it does feel like the enemy has robbed us from it. It's been one thing after another. I mean, it was COVID, and then we had the racial tensions, and then we're headed into a political tension. And so you can feel that you're somewhat out of control. And what we have to know is what Paul wrote to us. And I actually want to read you the verses, because sometimes we know them and we don't listen to them, or we don't resonate fully with what they mean. But Ephesians 6:10-12, this is Paul talking, and he says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." And it's one of these things that I just want you to remember, and we do this at most of our conferences. We talk about your prayer team and making sure you have a prayer team, because I don't want to go hyper charismaniac in thinking through that, there's a demon around every corner. But I do believe in a very living God, and I know there's a living enemy that is trailing right behind, that is trying to always sidestep us and just mess us up. And so it's going to be super important that as you're in that reentry phase, if you don't have a prayer team, boy, grab one right now. Start to get some people. There are people that love to fast and pray and intercede for your ministry. And you want to couple them, because going to this reentry without a prayer team, I can't fathom it, because when Paul's talking about the full armor of God, it is a battle. And as you know, all that armor is on the front side of you. It's not on your hind side. So we're not designed to tuck tail and run away from the issue. We're taught to go into the battle with God. And so I just want to encourage you to meditate on those scriptures, meditate on those pieces, get your prayer list in front of them. So as you're thinking through these reentry pieces, I just hope you, as a small group point person, will kind of look through these. Derek will put the outline in the show notes and help you kind of get a visual piece of this. But look at the show notes, look at the pieces we're putting in there, help understand where you, as the point person, are thinking through as you're going into this reentry.
Steve, I think it's really cool how you live out having a prayer team that prays for you. They've got your back. And whenever you're going out on a trip or a small group conference, I know you email out the prayer team and you tell them specific things they can pray for you. So I know that's got to be encouraging for you to hear their feedback and know that you're feeling the power of their prayers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't step on a plane without knowing that they're in the cover. And as we're going into this reentry time, it's another one of those places where, they need to be up to speed. People are down on what you're not up on. And so make sure your prayer team, more than anybody else, is very up on your reentry plan and what they need to pray for.
So those are your 7 COVID re-entry musts for the small group point person. And we just want to thank you again for taking the time to join us today and stay up to date with all of our COVID-19 small group resources. We have so many of them that we have created in the last couple months by bookmarking smallgroupnetwork.com/COVID-19. Have a great week, everybody.
Hey, Small Group Network family. Jason Banzoff here, Group Talk producer and Small Group Network creative arts director. Thank you for joining us this week on Group Talk, and thank you to Steve and Derek for that great episode on COVID re-entry. We hope this helps you and your church as we head into this new season of ministry. Now, before we go, let's talk about a few things. Have you created your free membership yet with Small Group Network? Make sure you visit smallgroupnetwork.com to get amazing resources straight to your inbox. You will not be disappointed. Also on smallgroupnetwork.com, you can check out Amber Sanders' blog on developing an anti-racist culture in your small group, as well as her podcast with Carolyn. This is an incredible resource for you and your team. Lastly, have you joined our Facebook group yet? We're about to hit 5,000 members. That's right, 5,000. Imagine how much better your small group ministry would be if you had access to that many small group point people. So what are you waiting for? Go right now, search for the Small Group Network in the Facebook search bar to join. Again, thank you so much for joining us this week on Group Talk, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Group Talk. We invite you to subscribe to the podcast through iTunes and get new episodes downloaded automatically. Also, if you enjoy this program, please take a few minutes to give us a positive rating on iTunes so that other small group point people can find us more easily. We encourage you to visit our website at smallgroupnetwork.com to access our library of free resources, connect to a huddle with other small group ministry leaders in your area, read our blog articles, or join us on our Facebook group. Don't forget to use the hashtag SGNet when engaging with your social media channels. Thank you for your support.